Happy Friday, happy May. Um, Today is our WastewaterSCAN monthly partner meeting, so thank you all for being here. I'm going to go ahead and get started. It will be just me and Amanda presenting today, but Allie may join us towards the end of the call, and we have lots of other WastewaterSCAN folks on the call to help out and answer questions. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, who we are, as always, WastewaterSCAN is a national effort to build this network using consistent methods for wastewater monitoring, involving all of you. I am Marlene. I am one of the program directors and co-PI, and Allie is the PI and other program director at Stanford. Our scaling partners are Verily, who you know well, processes all the samples, and National League of Cities, and then all of you as our partners. So thank you, as always, for coming to this meeting and getting these updates and sharing your questions and thoughts with us. A little bit of overview of where we're at. So this has not changed since the last meeting. We have 147 plants that are sampling almost 12% of the US population and 40 states represented, and our beautiful map, as always, showing where all of you are located all across the country. And here's what we are currently monitoring. So we have our respiratory pathogens, SARS-CoV-2, influenza A and B, and several influenza A subtypes, RSV, human metapneumovirus, and EVD68. For our enteric pathogens right now, we have norovirus. Emerging and outbreak pathogens of concern, we have Candida auris, Hep A, Mpox clade 1B, and clade 2, and then our controls. We are going to share some updates, though, on some upcoming changes and hopeful additions that we are planning on. All of our protocols and publications are open access. So this is, again, here typically for you to go ahead and have access to after the meeting. You can go back to this slide after Amanda sends it out, but you can see our protocols and then some of the key publications that our monitoring is based on for these different pathogens. You can look at the QR code and get a link directly to those publications. Some recent updates on new things. So we have a recently accepted paper on parvovirus, and so that preprint is available, and Amanda just dropped a bunch of links here in the chat, and so you can go directly to that preprint, but the paper has been accepted. And then we have submitted papers that are available as preprints, West Nile virus as a preprint, wastewater surveillance, and antibiotic resistance across the United States. We had a great extra seminar that we had where Amy Pickering talked about the details of that study, and that's available, I think, is it on the YouTube, Amanda? Yeah, it's on the
Yes, I'll share a link.
Yeah. So if you missed that, you can check it out because it was recorded. And so we went a little more in depth on that. And then this preprint that describes Mpox clade 1B at all of our entire WastewaterSCAN network. So those are submitted and in progress, but available as preprints. And then we have our entire published body of work. You can go to that link and you can get that overview, a little bit of kind of a narrative look at where our publications are that fit into different themes for wastewater monitoring. This is what that looks like on the website, where you can find our FAQs, fact sheets, and guidance documents. So it's down, the last section here is the supporting data interpretation through summary documents for our stakeholders. And in that section, you will find a lot of these pathogen-specific fact sheets and FAQs, information on variability in wastewater. So just don't forget that this section is here because Amanda really has done a great job of like keeping it updated and adding new information, and we're always generating new stuff on the next things that we're working on. So check out that section. Okay, so now kind of our big topic for today is we want to talk about the measles assay and kind of our work lately on measles. Then we have a bunch of updates to get through, so I will kind of mostly shift questions to the end, but feel free to put questions in the chat as you have them. So we are working on measles, which we have told you in our last meeting, and so we've got some more updated details. These are our typical steps for assay scaling, and this is the process we always do anytime we add something new for WastewaterSCAN. Kind of steps 1 through 6 here. Decide to track a virus or organism. Use software to design or check the specificity of the assay that we're deciding to use in silico. Procure the materials. Test the specificity and sensitivity in vitro in the lab, apply the completed assay in a retrospective study, share what we're doing, gather some stakeholder input, and we have now done steps 1 through 5 for measles, and we are on step 6, which is apply a completed assay and compare to clinical data and see how it goes. So what we're doing is we have developed and tested a new assay that is specific to measles genotypes B3 and D8. It will not detect the vaccine. And so Amanda has put some of the details in here on the methods, which we've just written up in a pretty extensive Google Docs. You can see all the details of the assay and also the validation that we have done so far to test for that specificity and sensitivity and do some of the retrospective testing. So we are now doing steps 5 and 6 using that assay, which I'll show you a little bit more about in just a second. And we're working on step 6. We have 8 wastewater treatment plants and their local and state public health who are involved in about a 2-week pilot. And so we just started that this week, and we are in the process of seeing how this is actually going to work in real life when we scale it now that we've worked through steps 1 through 5. These are the assay details. So it is a modified version of the assay from a paper that's Roy et al., which is referenced in that testing methods document that we just shared. These are the probe and primer sequences. And what you can see here, it was basically a vaccine-specific assay that we have modified to be a wild type specific assay. And so these are some of the plots from the digital PCR instrument showing the positive and negative droplets for digital PCR. And you can see that the gray cloud of droplets here at the bottom is negative. There's nothing detected in those. And this red cloud of droplets at the top is positive, and that is where we do have fluorescence for these two. We actually have a G blocks that were the control for B3 and D8. This is the amplitude for those of you who are not super familiar with looking at these fluorescence plots. And it just shows basically how bright each of those droplets is when it fluoresces as positive with the target. And so we have a nice cluster that's really kind of neatly together that shows the B3 and D8, and then all of these that did not have B3 or D8 them. The important thing here is also the vaccine strain. And so we have genomic DNA from RNA from the vaccine strain of the virus. And so what you'll see is that there is no amplitude here. The entire sort of negative cloud of droplets is all together, even though we know that we spiked in that control into this sample. There's no cross-reactivity. The vaccine strain is not being detected at all by this assay. And so we feel confident that this is really specific to the wild type measles and will not pick up the vaccine strain. So here's our timeline. For scaling, assuming each step is a success. So we're doing a pilot. We are testing this out in real time. We are optimistic and excited that this will be successful, but we are, going to continue to observe the data as it comes in and determine what that we actually are ready to go on to the next step. So assuming each step is a success, right now we're in this 2-week pilot phase, so May 5th to about May 19th at these 8 wastewater treatment plants located in an area that is not a central measles outbreak area, but has had some measles cases. The results are not public. They're not uploaded to the API. They're just being privately shared with the partners who are directly involved in that pilot. Then the week of May 19th, we will scale the assay to all WastewaterSCAN plants, so all 147. We will still keep this in that early phase. It won't be public yet. So results will be available via a staged website. This is the same process we have done in the past for those of you who have been through this with us before, which is pretty much everybody now. And so this will be a staged website with a unique URL that's only accessible to people with the URL. So just like we did with Clade 1B rollout, and I don't think we've had any changes in partners since then, other than changes that might have happened within, your own jurisdictions and who's responsible for handling these things within your jurisdictions. But it's the same process as before. Any positive results will be shared with appropriate partners via email, assuming that we don't have a huge flood of positive measles, but our goal is to let anyone who has a positive result know right away, especially for that first positive. Hopefully most of you won't have a positive right away, but if there is one, we will share that just directly with partners via email, as well as having it on the staged website. Now, assuming that goes well, and we'll incorporate your feedback in that assessment, of course, the week of June 2nd, so the beginning of June, the goal is to make the data public, and so then it would also be available by the API. This edition of measles, we are going to, because we're expanding kind of our capacity for testing a little bit as part of this, we're also going to be including parvovirus, rotavirus, and adenovirus group F on that plate where we run measles. So those are going to be added back in. So at the beginning of June, whenever we scale measles and we're ready for that to be public and going onto the site, certainly by that point, we will also have those other targets available. Parvovirus, rotavirus and adenovirus group F, those are assays that we have run in the past and had to sunset as we were switching things in and out based on needs. So those will be ones that you're familiar with from previously, and we will add those back in. Parvovirus is new, but again, I hope you check out that preprint from that paper that was just accepted, and that gives a lot of really great information about parvovirus. So the exact timing of when we have the rotavirus and adenovirus group F data back available publicly on the website, it may be before June 2nd, but we'll definitely keep you updated on that as we get the data rolling. And for each step in this process, we will send out email notifications so that you know exactly what's coming. We also have this measles FAQ sheet to help guide data interpretation. And we have also been in close communication with the CDC about measles testing in wastewater. And I know that they are also providing guidance to jurisdictions. So I know many of you have already been in touch with them about measles related work, especially in wastewater. Okay, here again are the reference documents. We'll send this deck out, so you will have these URLs again here, as well as in the chat, as well as we will email them to you again in the future. But we have the frequently asked questions, so that's more geared towards interpretation. How do we understand this data? How are we using it? And the measles testing methods, that's really focused on the assay that we're using and the process that we're applying to do the testing in wastewater. So if you have additional questions, these documents are work in progress. So if there are things that you wish were answered or that you would like us to add, please let us know, because we want to make sure that as we move, forward, we have answered as many questions as we possibly can that you have. So please email us and let us know. Okay, and I have, I think, one more slide, and then I'm going to turn it over to Amanda. So other ongoing new research projects. We've talked about a lot of this before, but we have some work that we've been doing on a research basis on pertussis, which is whooping cough, tuberculosis, pilot studies on both of those, and Oropouche. So we are expecting to have more information to share on those soon, but they're not things that we're scaling right now, but things that we're doing ongoing research on. We've also been working on methods for metagenomic sequencing of viruses and working on methods development. I just want to put it out there. We're excited. We feel that's been going really well, and it's something that we are optimistic that we can add into the program in the near future. And so we will share more information about those results and the methods and how that's going and what a staged process might look like for adding some of those metagenomics into WastewaterSCAN. But we're excited to share more information about that with you soon, because it is something that we are hopeful to scale. And then I see Michelle just asked this question, so I have a slide. Program continuation. We are optimistic about another phase for the program, and we plan to share an update very soon. And that's what I can share with you today. Okay, I'm going to pass it over to Amanda for the wastewater categories, and then we'll be happy to open it back up and answer more questions about measles and anything else.
Thanks, Marlene. So I'm going to go over the categories as of this morning. So these were grabbed from the website today. Next slide. Just as a reminder, the categories are based on trends, so they tell us how things are changing over the last 21 days, whether things are increasing, decreasing, or no significant change. Levels tell us where we are today versus 365 days ago. And then frequency of detection is important for our rarer pathogens. And I just included a link in the chat to our whole category methodology. You guys have all seen this before, but this is just a reminder. Next. So you can look at this on the website, but remember we have 3 different archetypes. So we have pathogens that are commonly detected, seasonal pathogens, and then rarely detected pathogens. Next slide. So I'm going to do a quick overview so we have plenty of time for questions at the end. So as of this morning, May 9th, we are in the medium category for SARS-CoV-2, and that is due to medium concentrations and no trends. In a couple of slides, I'm going to go into more detail on this because I also want to give an update on sequencing as well. Influenza A, we are no longer in seasonal onset. Only 24% of sites are still in seasonal onset. And just a quick summary of where we're at with the different influenza markers. So there's been a 20% detection rate for the H1 marker, a 5% detection rate for the H3 marker, and there's only been 8 positive samples for the H5 marker in the last 21 days. And those locations have been in California and New Jersey. Influenza B is in the high category, and that's due to high concentrations and no trends. We still have about 50% of sites that are in seasonal onset for influenza B. Next, we have RSV. We are no longer in seasonal onset for RSV. We have 21% of sites that are still lingering in that seasonal onset currently. Human metapneumovirus is in the low category due to not being in seasonal onset, and 47% of sites across the whole network are still in seasonal onset. EVD 68, we've only had 17% of samples in the last 21 days test positive for EVD 68, and all of those samples have been in California. So as a reminder, we've shared in the past that we've had this lingering detection happening in the Bay Area and the Central Valley of California since early 2025. Neurovirus, we are in the medium category. This is the first time we've been in the medium category for neurovirus since last fall. And currently we're seeing medium concentrations and a downward trend. Mpox clade 1b, we've only had 1 positive detection in the last 21 days. Mpox clade 2, we've had 1 positive detection as well in the last 21 days. C. auris, we've had about a 5% detection rate in the last 21 days, with 5 sites in the medium category currently. Hepatitis A, we've had a 9% detection rate in the last 21 days, and 10 sites are in the medium category currently. Next slide. So here is just a high-level summary of the respiratory virus pathogens we monitor across our network. This is showing you the last 2 years worth of data. This is the national aggregate. And so in the top plot, you have SARS-CoV-2, next influenza A, influenza B, RSV, human metapneumovirus, and EVD 68. All of these have their own scales on the y-axis, so please pay attention to that. And then I've added this time for reference the dashed orange line to show you where we were a year ago today versus today. So you have that reference of, and we're kind of in a similar aggregate level for SARS-CoV-2 today compared to 365 days ago. We are lower for influenza A than we were 365 days ago. Influenza B, we're still in an elevated level compared to 365 days ago. RSV, similar concentrations, and human metapneumovirus, we are currently a little bit lower than where we were 365 days ago. And EVD 68, like I mentioned, most sites have been non-detect, but this was our first year where we saw a seasonal onset for EVD 68, and we saw that start to happen late spring of last year, and now we've kind of mostly hit non-detect. Next slide. So here's the SARS-CoV-2 summary. We're in the medium category currently, and this plot shows you the last 24 months, and it shows you the aggregated lines for national network, which is black, Northeast, which is green, South, which is the chartreuse color, Midwest, which is red, and West, which is blue. And so we've had a 97% detection rate over the last 21 days, but we're at similar levels at the national level to where we were 365 days ago. Next slide. So we currently have about 10 sites that are in the high category, but a majority of sites have entered that low category. Next slide. So I wanted to give a quick update about sequencing. We recently updated our sequencing pipeline because we noticed that there was a big chunk of samples that were showing that KP.1 was the dominant variant, and Alessandro did some research into this, and we were able to update our pipeline to reflect the addition of LP.8.1. So if you look at this plot, which is showing the most recent data is through May 3rd, the week of May 3rd, you're seeing that this brown color, which represents LP.8.1, has made up a majority of what we are seeing since roughly mid-March. And so currently 68.5%, that's what we're seeing for the dominant variant for LP.8.1. And so we'll provide a link to this in the slides that we send out. Just wanted to give a quick update on neurovirus. So as I mentioned, this is the first time we've been in the medium category since last fall. And if you look at the plot on the left, that is the national aggregate of the wastewater concentrations. And then the right is the positivity rate. And they mirror each other really well. We've had this steep decrease in concentrations and a decrease in test positivity rates, starting in February of this year, and they mirror each other really well. Next slide. Oh, this is just a 24 month summary for you. We'll share these so you can take a deeper dive into this. But as a reminder, we had a really big peak in neurovirus this past year compared to the previous winter, spring of 2024. Next slide. So we're going to end it now. But as a reminder, if you have any questions about anything, you can send us an email to this link here, and that'll go to Allie, Marlene, Stephen, and myself. And one of the four of us will be able to answer your questions very quickly. And lastly, next slide. Thank you for attending. We have our next June stakeholder meeting will be on June 13th, Friday, June 13th, 2025, and we will have our monthly newsletter at the end of this month. And I'm going to hand it over to Marlene, and we can take any questions you all have.